Part 1, The Caring Father. Chapter 1, Early Morning Surprises. Once upon a time, in a small town called Greenfield, lived a man named Mr. Thomas. He was a kind and hard-working father of 2 children, Lily and Jake. Mr. Thomas loved his children more than anything in the world. He always wanted the best for them and worked very hard to provide for his family. Every morning, Mr. Thomas would wake up early, even before the sun rose. He would quietly go to the kitchen and make breakfast for Lily and Jake. He would cook their favorite pancakes, eggs, and fresh orange juice. The smell of delicious food would fill the house, waking up the children with a smile. Lily, who was 10 years old, loved to help her father in the kitchen. She would set the table and make sure everything was perfect. Jake, who was 7, would often join in by washing the fruits and vegetables. Together, they made a great team. Chapter 2, Off to School. After breakfast, Mr. Thomas would walk Lily and Jake to school. The school was not far from their home, and they enjoyed the walk. They would talk about their dreams and plans for the day. Mr. Thomas always encouraged them to do their best and reminded them that he believed in them. One day, on their way to school, Jake tripped and fell. He scraped his knee and started to cry. Mr. Thomas quickly picked him up, cleaned the wound, and gave him a big hug. He told Jake that it was okay to fall, but important to get back up and keep trying. Jake felt better and continued walking with a smile. Chapter 3, The Surprise. In the afternoon, Mr. Thomas had a surprise for Lily and Jake. He had planned a special trip to the zoo. After school, he picked them up, and they drove to the zoo. The children were very excited. They loved animals and couldn't wait to see them. At the zoo, they saw lions, elephants, giraffes, and many other animals. Mr. Thomas told them interesting facts about each animal. They also got to feed some of the animals and take pictures. Lily and Jake were very happy and thanked their father for the wonderful day. Chapter 4, Homework Time. After the fun trip to the zoo, it was time to go home and do homework. Mr. Thomas believed that education was very important. He always made sure that Lily and Jake finished their homework before playing. He would sit with them at the dining table and help them with their studies. Lily was very good at math, but she sometimes needed help with English. Mr. Thomas would patiently explain the lessons and help her understand. Jake, on the other hand, loved reading stories. Mr. Thomas would read stories with him and help him with difficult words. Chapter 5, Bedtime Stories. After finishing their homework and having dinner, it was time for bed. Mr. Thomas had a special bedtime routine with Lily and Jake. Every night, he would read them a story before they went to sleep. They would all sit on Lily's bed and listen to their father's soothing voice. Mr. Thomas had a big book of fairy tales that he would read from. Lily and Jake loved the stories of brave knights, beautiful princesses, and magical creatures. The stories made them dream big and believe that anything was possible. One night, as Mr. Thomas was reading a story, he noticed that Lily and Jake were falling asleep. He gently kissed them on their foreheads and tucked them in. He whispered, "Good night, my dear children. Sweet dreams." He then quietly left the room, making sure they were comfortable and safe. Chapter 6: A Father's Love. Mr. Thomas sat in the living room, thinking about his day. He was tired but happy. He loved spending time with his children and teaching them important life lessons. He knew that being a father was not always easy, but it was the most rewarding job in the world. As he looked at the pictures of Lily and Jake on the wall, he smiled. He was proud of his children and grateful for the joy they brought into his life. He promised himself that he would always be there for them, no matter what. Mr. Thomas believed that a father's love was the greatest gift he could give to his children. He wanted to be a role model for Lily and Jake, showing them how to be kind, hard-working, and loving. He knew that with love and guidance, his children would grow up to be wonderful and successful people. This is the end of Part 1. In Part 2, we will continue the story of Mr. Thomas and his children, exploring more adventures and life lessons. Stay tuned! Part 2: The Father's Promise. Chapter 7: A Day at the Park. The next day, Mr. Thomas decided to take Lily and Jake to the park. The park was a beautiful place with green trees, colorful flowers, and a big playground. Lily loved to swing high in the air, while Jake enjoyed climbing the monkey bars. As they arrived at the park, the children ran towards the playground, laughing and playing with other kids. Mr. Thomas watched them from a bench, feeling content. He loved seeing his children happy and free. He knew that these moments were precious and wanted to make the most of them. After a while, Mr. Thomas called Lily and Jake over. He had brought a kite for them to fly. They were very excited. They took turns holding the string, running and laughing as the kite soared high in the sky. Mr. Thomas ran with them, helping the kite stay up and teaching them how to control it. Chapter 8: The Lesson of the Kite. As they flew the kite, Mr. Thomas took the opportunity to teach his children an important lesson. He told them that life was like flying a kite. Sometimes the wind would be strong, and the kite would fly high with ease. Other times, the wind would die down, and the kite would fall. But no matter what, Mr. Thomas said, you must keep holding on to the string. You must keep trying. Life will have its ups and downs, but you must stay strong and keep going. Always believe in yourselves and never give up. Lily and Jake listened carefully. They understood what their father was trying to say. They nodded and promised to always remember his words. Chapter 9: Helping Others. One evening, as they were walking home from the park, they saw an old lady struggling with her groceries. Mr. Thomas immediately went over to help her. He carried her bags and walked her to her house. Lily and Jake watched their father with admiration. They saw how kind and helpful he was to others. Mr. Thomas always taught them to be kind and to help those in need. He believed that small acts of kindness could make a big difference in the world. After helping the old lady, Mr. Thomas told Lily and Jake that it was important to be good to others. He said, "Always remember, my dear children, that kindness is the key to a happy life. When you help others, you make the world a better place. And in return, you will feel joy and fulfillment in your heart." Chapter 10: The Camping Trip. A few weeks later, Mr. Thomas planned a special camping trip for the family. They packed their bags with clothes, food, and a tent. They drove to a beautiful forest where they would spend the weekend. Lily and Jake were very excited. They loved nature and couldn't wait to explore the forest. Mr. Thomas taught them how to set up the tent, build a campfire, and cook food over the fire. They roasted marshmallows and told stories under the stars. At night, as they lay in their tent, Mr. Thomas told Lily and Jake about the constellations. He pointed out the stars and explained how people had been using them to navigate for centuries. The children listened in awe, fascinated by the stories and the beauty of the night sky. Chapter 11: Facing Fears. During the camping trip, Mr. Thomas decided to take Lily and Jake on a hike. They walked through the forest, admiring the tall trees and the sounds of birds. Suddenly, they heard a rustling noise in the bushes. Lily and Jake were scared. Mr. Thomas held their hands and told them to stay calm. He explained that it was probably just a small animal and that there was nothing to be afraid of. He reminded them that fear was a natural feeling, but that it was important to face it and stay brave. As they continued their hike, they saw a family of deer grazing in a clearing. Lily and Jake were amazed. They realized that there was nothing to fear and that the forest was a wonderful place full of life and beauty. Chapter 12: The Unexpected Storm. On the second night of their camping trip, a storm suddenly hit. The wind howled, and the rain poured down heavily. The tent shook, and Lily and Jake were scared. Mr. Thomas held them close and assured them that everything would be okay. He told them that storms were a part of nature and that they always passed. He explained that just like in life, there would be difficult times, but they would always find a way through them. Mr. Thomas stayed calm and strong, showing his children that there was nothing to fear. The next morning, the storm had passed and the sun was shining again. They stepped out of the tent to find a beautiful rainbow in the sky. Mr. Thomas smiled and said, "See, my dear children, after every storm, there is always a rainbow. Never lose hope, because better days are always ahead." Chapter 13: Back to School. After the camping trip, it was time for Lily and Jake to go back to school. They were eager to share their adventures with their friends and teachers. Mr. Thomas continued to support them in their studies, helping them with their homework and encouraging them to do their best. One day, Lily came home with a science project. She had to build a model of the solar system. Mr. Thomas was excited to help her. They spent hours cutting, painting, and gluing. Lily was very proud of her project and couldn't wait to show it to her class. Jake, on the other hand, had a spelling bee coming up. Mr. Thomas helped him practice every evening. They would sit at the kitchen table, going over words and their meanings. Jake worked hard, and with his father's support, he felt confident and ready. Chapter 14: Achievements and Celebrations. The day of the spelling bee arrived, and Jake was very nervous. Mr. Thomas gave him a big hug and told him to do his best. He reminded Jake that it was okay to make mistakes, and that what mattered most was trying hard. Jake did very well in the spelling bee and won second place. He was very happy and proud of himself. Mr. Thomas and Lily cheered for him and celebrated his achievement. A few days later, Lily brought home her science project results. She had received an A and a special mention from her teacher. Mr. Thomas was very proud of her. They celebrated with a special dinner and a movie night. Chapter 15: A Father's Promise. One evening, as they sat together, Mr. Thomas looked at his children with love and pride. He made a promise to them. He said, "My dear Lily and Jake, I promise to always be there for you. I will support you, guide you, and love you unconditionally. No matter what challenges you face, remember that I am always here for you. Together, we can overcome anything." Lily and Jake hugged their father tightly. They knew how much he loved them and how hard he worked to give them a good life. They felt safe and secure, knowing that they had a father who would always be by their side. Chapter 16: Looking to the Future. As the years went by, Lily and Jake grew older. They continued to do well in school and made many friends. They remembered the lessons their father had taught them and always tried to be kind, hard-working, and brave. Mr. Thomas watched them grow with pride and joy. He knew that they would face many challenges in life, but he also knew that they were strong and capable. He had faith in them and believed that they would achieve great things. Mr. Thomas's love and guidance had shaped Lily and Jake into wonderful young people. They were grateful for everything their father had done for them and knew that they could always count on him. This is the end of Part 2 and the story of Mr. Thomas and his children. Through his love, wisdom, and support, Mr. Thomas taught Lily and Jake important life lessons that they would carry with them forever. His promise to always be there for them gave them the strength and confidence to face the world and its challenges.